I,
Hi, Kyran. Can you hear me
yeah,
okay?
yeah, it's not even through my headphones. God's sake. Oh well. We'll just
As
we'll
long
just
as you
do
can
it
hear
through my
me, because I
phone.
can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. That's the main thing. That's the main thing.
Perfect. Right. So, welcome everybody to the IGA podcast. This is episode 4 in the series. Tonight we've got Kyran Cox, who's a local to, Gwynedd now, isn't it?
Yeah, Carnarvon.
How's
I'm
it
not quite a
residing in
copycat though,
Carnarvon?
so don't worry.
How is it residing in Carnarvon at the moment?
Yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it, to be honest with you. I like living in Wales compared to Lincoln. More for the scenery than anything, but living in Carnarvon's definitely made it a lot easier in terms of getting to know the community and everyone living here. It's nice. It's really nice. It's different as
Oh,
well.
you'll definitely learn some stuff up there. That was where I first started working when I moved up here.
Where was you working?
In a place called Furniture Wales, which was on the industrial estate up there. It's since
Okay.
closed now, unfortunately. I was quite sad to see that, but
Yeah.
that was quite interesting because some of the people there, because obviously they knew I was English, and I just moved. I knew nothing about Wales. I didn't know any Welsh, and they weren't teaching me quite the right phrases to mingle with the
Well,
public.
at least they're teaching you something though. That's one good thing to take away from it. How did you find it originally coming out to Wales? Did you find it a bit daunting in the fact that you didn't really understand how, I don't know, a Welsh culture feels about the English people, if you can say that?
I
Um,
knew nothing about the Welsh-English divide. I was what they would consider that ignorant English person that's come here. Like, who's this guy? Because obviously I was coming from Essex, I was quite bolshy, really, and you can tell
yeah.
from my accent sometimes it comes across as a bit like, wide boy sort of thing. But when I was talking to her
Roadman,
that, and
Roadman Ian.
yeah, exactly. Well, before they were roadmen, obviously.
Oh
Um, but when I first got here, so like I said, I knew nothing about the English-Welsh divide, nothing at all. I had no idea there was so much animosity towards English people at times. But the majority of people I met,
yeah.
absolutely lovely, absolutely lovely. But there was
They
just
are, and
there's a little
they
bit,
are
there's a
really
little bit.
nice to you. It's just I don't know. I think it's just a deeper rooted problem within everybody, but it's more directed towards obviously politicians nowadays. I feel than the English public, but
Yeah,
you know,
and it should be as well,
the
because
thing
it
is,
has
being an
nothing to
English
do with
person,
any
you
of
kind
us.
of accept that nobody really likes English people anyway. No matter where you go, it's kind of that stereotypical same saying of, oh God, the lads are away on holiday, football lads, can't stand English people, but
The
you just
lager
kind of
loud.
accept it.
You know what I mean? They just go abroad for the drink, don't they?
Oh yeah, of course, it's cheaper.
So why
Well,
did you
no,
move to Wales yourself?
is what? Sorry.
Why did you move to Wales?
Oh God, that is a long story.
All right,
It's
we can
a
go
lot
on
of
for
issues
hours
that
if
I
you want
was.
to.
Oh, I can tell you. Oh, I don't know about that. It's no, I was going through a bit of a rough time in Lincoln, due to various problems, which I just couldn't really deal with anymore.
Okay.
And I had a job offer from one of my friends, and I took it straight away. Actually, well, no, within a couple of weeks, should I say? Took the job and never really looked back. And it just, I came from such a dark place in Lincoln to where I am now. It's a lot different, and I feel myself again. Whereas maybe 5 years ago, I was stuck in a rut. Could you say?
Hmm.
It was a bad time, but I'm a lot better now.
Was that something to do with the area itself, or is that just sort of
Um,
a
well,
personal thing for
just
you?
the relationship I was in, and my activities outside of work, where I was living wasn't the best. There's various things where it's one of them ones where you live and learn.
Hmm.
And I don't regret anything that I've ever done in my life really, and that's what you have to take away from it. Because yes, I've had a few years of bad times, gained a lot of weight, and not got in the wrong crowd because I love my friends to bits and everything like that. But there's a lot that came with it, and putting it into a point now, I've learned a lot and I enjoy my life, and I'm thankful I went through the experiences as opposed to not to, because I think it's just made me a lot of a stronger person with
Helped you
not
be a bit more
wisdom,
resilient.
but life lessons, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, helped you be a bit more resilient.
Yeah, well, that, and just grow up. To be honest with you, I felt I've done partying and all the thing that comes with that, and I just kind of stopped doing it when I was about 20. Just because of
so what age did you move here?
My girlfriend breaking up with me.
What age were you when you moved here?
Is what? Sorry.
What age were you? How old were you?
21, 22. It's 3 years ago, so 25 now. So I think I was 21.
And how did you find the party scene when you got here?
Non-existent. Nobody here. Just kind of made it herself. But no. I mean, I met some really nice people being here. One of my next door neighbours when we first moved to Pennagroyce. I still speak to him now, and he's a good friend. And he likes his parties as well. And well, my friend who originally was here, he moved away. He moved back over to Lincoln after about a year and a half, because his girlfriend was over that way. So he got fed up of the travel and the distance. So he packed his bags essentially after a year or so and then left again.
It's hard, it's one of those. It is one of those sort of things that you have to really make the commitment to make that change of living. If you sort of hang on to a lot of things from your past and your previous area, especially one that you grew up in, because it's really hard to do. I mean, I know that myself. It was very hard to let go of. Certain friends, certain things you enjoyed doing, it will make you keep going back down there. But if you don't let go of these things to a certain degree, you can't really settle yourself. And it was once I made certain cut-offs, it was that I really started to enjoy living in Wales. It was such a culture change. I mean, in Essex, obviously, you got loads of bars, clubs, shops galore, and everybody's spending money constantly. You feel like you have to keep up with a lot of people. Yeah. But when I moved here, I wasn't really like that. I think my younger brother had a bit more trouble trying to adjust to it. But for me, I was just like, oh, thank God there's nobody wore brands here. Like everybody was just, I don't care about brands. There's no need to spend loads of money and stuff. We haven't even got loads of shops near us, so it doesn't matter. I thought, great, brilliant.
Well, I mean, Carnarvon Town is, there's not loads there. Bangor is, that's the closest city, and there's nothing. And to be honest with you, I mean, looking at the way the world is anyway, and what's kind of happened. Well, yes, was it today that it got announced that we're into the largest recession? 20%. Ever really, and I can't see many high street shops getting out of this issue because people can just place their orders online, look at all the clothes that way, and it's more convenient. Which,
apart from the staff, the companies shouldn't be complaining because they've been pushing everyone to go online for years anyway.
Well, yeah, that's it.
They've done it themselves.
That's going to be, that's a worry for kind of AI across the board. It's a lot of auto jobs, lorry driving. You see it at McDonald's now with all the pay points as you go in. It's a lot easier, and people will suffer. But I think alongside that, there'll be more opportunities for people to kind of lean into because they've not been able to do that before.
Yeah. Do you know what I noticed actually? Because I went into McDonald's the other day. They got the 50% on, so I thought I'd take advantage of that. And I went in there and I wanted to pay by cash. Have you not? It's a bizarre experience, because they don't want to deal with you at the counters anymore. You're losing. And for somewhere like McDonald's, which is such a big company and it's everywhere in the UK, it's everywhere across the world, really.
It's meant to be a restaurant.
It's not. It's nothing like it.
I know, but that's where it's meant to be. So they proper had their, the brand of that push out in the past kind of few years by putting the floor members in a different shirt at the front. And you see almost a host there in a lot of, well, before obviously the virus came out, when you went to a McDonald's to eat in, you'd see a host there. And, it was quite nice because normally they were quite old. They were just cleaning a few tables. I'm one of them people at McDonald's where I say it's a restaurant, so I'm going to leave my tray on the table, and the person the person who comes round, whose job it is to clean up, can do it. Because when they come to see me in a restaurant, that's exactly what I'd be doing for them. So
Well, there's two different people, isn't it? There's ones that you can't leave your tray there. You know, it's unfair on the staff. And then there's other people. It's like, well, what? How else is somebody going to have a job there if they're not cleaning up the trays?
Like
you're taking away their job.
It's a divide of kind of Labour and Conservative, isn't it? It's that bad. It's just kind of like, oh, you must be a Tory if you leave your tray on the table.
Just for you to bring politics into McDonald's.
You got to link it, but no.
It was such a strange experience though, because I walked in and I wanted to pay by cash, and I walk up to the counter, which must have been the most stupid thing in the world, because the person behind it just looked at me like, "What are you doing? You use the machine over there. You have to tap. You know the giant tablets they've got that's meant to look like either a tablet or a phone that you've got to use." And
the sync isn't just quite right, so when you press the button, it just goes down a bit.
Exactly. So I go. She's like, "You got to go and place your order there, then come back to me at the counter." And I'm looking at her like, "But I could just tell you my order." But anyway, you know, I complied because you know I don't want to be one of them. And I go over to the machine. I'm typing in my order. I get to the end of it. Obviously, I want to pay by cash, and there's no option for cash. All it wants to do is make you pay by card. And I'm like, okay. So I turned. Luckily, it was quiet, and they could actually deal with me as much as they didn't want to. So I asked her at the counter, I was like, how do I pay by cash? Because it's only telling me card. And she goes, will you press the button for cash? I was like, can you help me? Because there's no button for cash here. She had to go into some weird settings to pay by cash. They're literally just trying to get you to stop using cash, adding to the list of companies and people that are going, no cash here.
But it's quite interesting with this, obviously, this cashless society debate, because to be honest with you, I don't really use cash at all. I have a Monzo card and use my phone to pay for things. I rarely take my wallet out with me because I don't need to. Cash is just kind of there, and then you just kind of spend it on something that you probably shouldn't have because it's there to spend. And
so it's becoming inconvenient to you.
Oh, it's not inconvenient. It's just not necessary as much as.
Kyran, you can't say that.
I know, but for me, you know, personally, I don't really use cash. You know, if there was a change, I would be against it if we went to a cashless society, because there's other people who aren't like me that require cash a lot of the time, and that's absolutely fine, and I support that. But my not preference, but you know, my viewpoint on it is that I don't really use cash. So whatever, but I understand why people need to.
Yeah, but then that's causing the issue that will lead to a problem that then once it happens, you go, no, I don't like that, but you were part of the reason it happened.
Well, no,
it's one of them. Not to blame you.
Vote to keep cash inside our society. I think it's a valuable aspect of our society that people really need and require. I don't use it. Like, I'm just saying, I don't use it at all, really. Very rare.
I don't think
only
people
places that don't take card, which isn't, you know, it's normally just like a Chinese takeaway or something like that, which we had the other night, and that's fair enough. But most places nowadays, you know, they take more card revenue than they do with cash because that's a lot easier. And I mean, working inside the hospitality industry, you know, you want all the card payments because it's so much easier at the end of the night. You don't have to count all the money up.
There is that. And it's also.
You look at
it's also easier to spend your money as well without thinking about it.
It is, and that's why I actually got a Monzo. Just for the fact that it keeps telling you how much you spend. So you spend 20 quid there, spend 30 quid there. You get a notification saying you spent, you know, 50 quid today, and you've only been active for 2 hours. So I mean, what's going on?
It's like it's nagging you. It's going, Kyran, you do realise you're spending a lot of money today, don't you?
I know. But what's interesting is £50 is the target. £50 and below is the target that companies kind of trying to aim for, because if they spend £50 or more on a product, then they take it into more consideration than spending £50 or less, and that's kind of where the big drop is. So you know, under £50, that's where people, you know, go on Amazon and one-click buy, as everyone kind of does today, compared to anything else. And I think that's why, you know, prices tend to be quite low on Amazon as well.
We've already had a comment come in from Sue saying 1s and 5p could be scrapped. I don't know if she's saying she's seen something there. I don't know if you have, Sue. I'd love to hear a bit more about that. That's already.
What about
the
2p?
2p? Yeah,
You're about the 2p. Yeah, 'cause you need the 1p more than the 2p. You do. You need the 1p more than the 2p, don't you?
Yeah, you need to change.
I need the change at the minute. I go out to that because we recently just started going back out to the artisan markets, which is, oh my God, I cannot tell you the relief of going back out and meeting people. It was heaving. It was absolutely brilliant. It was so nice to see so many people out again, and not just out, being friendly, being courteous to everybody. And they're all, you could tell they're willing to spend money. They've been waiting to go out and buy something nice for themselves and actually, you know, deal with somebody either makes stuff or sells it themselves, you know, rather than just doing it online, because it's so soulless. I know it's easy. It's really easy to buy stuff online, and I do it a lot because of, you know, the running a business is what you have to do, ease of use. But it's so much nicer dealing with people. It's a real relief. And the nice thing was they were spending cash.
Okay, they were spending cash. Yeah. Do you have a card thing?
Oh yeah, you've got to have the card payment option because you do have people that don't carry cash, Kyran.
Yeah.
But it was nice. Actually, it was a really weird thing because before the pandemic, they used to say to a lot of us, "Oh, can I pay by card?" Like it was a weird thing, or you know, you might not do it. But now, after the pandemic, everyone's like, "Can I pay by cash? Are you okay with that?" It's just completely flipped on its head.
I mean, you have to think though, like how dirty money is. I mean, it's you know yourself going, you know, look at your hands after, you know, exchanging loads of coins all day and notes all day. God knows what's been on them, but some of them have been on a 35-year journey to get into your hand, which you're putting it into the till, and you know that's a long time. That's
true. But we recently came into possession. I say came into possession. It was from an auction, wasn't it? Your coins. Was it from that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Adrienne likes to go to auctions quite regularly. And
I like old things.
Is that why you're here? So she did the auction online, which was quite fun. But she, what was it, like a box of random bits and pieces that it was in, and there was like a glass just full of old coins. Some of them were like, what was it, 1800, end of 1800?
One was 1790 something.
Wow, I mean, it's 1799, and you're looking at this coin. It's battered, like you said, and it's dirty, it's battered, but it's got things on it that you're just looking at like, wow, that's from so long ago. That's really well traveled, and it's got history behind it. And there's a feel with that you will not get with just having a card that you can just transfer over money. You know, it's not the same thing. There's certain elements to society that we're going to lose by that happening. Oh, and also Sue has just expanded on what she said before. She meant, why do retailers still price things at 99p? No one is taken in. It's a trick of the trade, Sue, and it works.
It does work. It means that you think you're paying £1 less than what you are.
Exactly right. Apparently, there's another theory that if you use if it ends in 7, so if you did 1297, apparently they're more likely to buy that instead of 99. I have no idea why. I don't know the science behind that one, but that's what I got told recently. It's 2p less. Wow, it was 99 before, now it's
saving the change. Oh God.
No, but I would definitely love to see cash stay. More than anything, it's just the worry of the repercussions behind it that maybe people don't think of.
Yeah.
One being that if, for example, you go online, you know, if you're, I don't know, if you're down to a certain, well, like you said, if you're spending too much or more than is expected or that you've set, you'll get a notification, right? What happens when you can't get hold of your money at all? If something goes wrong, if something is limited, you can't physically get your money.
You can't do that anyway. You know, if for whatever reason everybody tomorrow in the UK, America, or whatever decided, off with the banks, I'm going to withdraw all my money, I want it all in cash. They wouldn't physically be able to do it because there's not enough money printed. It's all on card. I think it was 10% of the whole world's currency is cash, when you know the rest of the 90% of the world's currency is all in offshore bank accounts. But anywhere. Do you know what I mean? There's no physical currency, and that's why things like gold is quite necessary, because people like to invest their money in something that is always going to be form of currency, especially if cash does go. I think things like gold would come back as a form of trade.
Oh, would it though? Considering some of the governments have been like eating it up as quick as they can.
Well,
and by that I mean storing it. They're buying it and storing it. And essentially, where you're buying, yeah, exactly. But where you buy gold, if you invest in gold, you're actually not investing in gold, because there's more investment out there than there is gold, or more shares, however you put the term down.
Yeah, so it's the same kind of as cash. There's more people invested in card than cash, and really, you haven't got any money. So
exactly. So what does that tell you about the fragility of our currency?
Well, it's needed, definitely.
I wonder how many people actually know that there's less cash than they think there is in the world, yet we have been told there's more.
Have we been told there's more?
You didn't know that?
Mm-mm.
Well, for example, if you've got £1,000 in the bank, and everybody else around you has apparently got £1,000 in the bank, but what you're saying is there isn't £1,000 in all your bank accounts. By the way, there isn't enough money in the world to have that.
That's it.
How's that possible?
It's an online digit, which is now, as opposed to what back in the probably say 100 years ago, people based their richness, upper classness on what they own and what they have, their objects, what they can afford, and that's what they put their money into. Because obviously, if you 100 years ago were worth a lot of money, where are you going to put all the money?
Under your mattress.
Not to do it. But that's how people do it nowadays. It's all just a digital figure.
You put it under your mattress, Kyran.
Oh no, in the wall.
You make sure it's a thick, heavy mattress.
Oh yes.
I've known a few people that have put money in funny places. It's really funny because everyone has a psychology behind it, don't they? Oh, if somebody burgled my house, it wouldn't be here.
Exactly. Well, it's the least place. Well, I don't know. I don't keep any cash here. I'm not, Walter White. I don't keep 2 million underneath my house. And
see, he has to say that now.
Yeah, I like how he's clarifying that. By the way, everybody, there is no money under my mattress, just so you know.
Oh, dear. Anyway,
if there was that amount of money under my mattress, I don't think I'd be sat here.
Well, no, that's it. There'd probably be another 500,000 people watching this if I had that much money.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of being sat here and being elsewhere, if you could be, are you going on holiday anywhere else at the moment, or actually have you had a holiday cancelled?
No, we've not had a holiday cancelled. I am trying to meet my family, so we're doing that next weekend. We're going down to Buxton. If you know Buxton. We're staying a night there, me and Catherine, and then we're meeting my family the next day. My sister's just had a little boy, which I've not met yet. So we're going to have a little family outing in the parks through there. It's quite nice, quite excited for.
Do you know what? I just want to say at the minute, what was that experience like? What was that experience like? Because everything at the minute is just in a bizarre condition. If you're having a child or something, going to the hospital to have a child right now, it must be very scary.
Well, it is. I mean, that's what I think of it. I mean, she said when she got to the hospital before she's gone into labour. It's literally about to come out, and she gets the COVID test shoved up her nose and everything like that while she's going through all these horrible experiences. And one thing that it'll always be is you'll really remember when you had your kid and how you felt and what was happening in the world because of such a devastation impact that's happened. So that's always going to be tied with it. So, well, you're a COVID baby.
Wow! Imagine that. Imagine you going through like you were a COVID baby.
Yeah. Because you've got the the millennials, and then you'll have the COVIDs.
The COVID. Oh, that's terrible. Well, they can say they were born during the worst time in, well, I guess our history. Anyway,
well, in multiple ways, it's a bad time, to be honest with you. Not just kind of what's been happening with the virus, but everything that's kind of transpired in the past 5 months. It's almost seemed to have blown up. you look back to a few months ago when everyone was just talking about Carol Baskin and the Tiger program. And
No.
everyone
That
loved
seems
it.
like such a long time ago.
It was great.
You know
It was
what?
absolutely great. Everyone absolutely loved it.
Alien's dying to do it. Go on.
No.
Carol Baskin.
Oh, it's every time anyone mentions her name.
Killed her husband. I'm sorry if I've put that back in anyone's head. I'm really sorry.
God, but no, it was so good. But God, so much has happened since then, and it's kind of been brewing, really. And I think that's why.
Who would have thought that wouldn't be the craziest part of this year? That documentary.
I know.
Jeez, was that this year?
Because when that came out, we were like,
Like
"This is
forever
bonkers."
ago.
I can't imagine anything crazier than that. And currently, we're living through it. We're living through the craziest stuff. I can't wait to see what the rest of 2020's got in for us. There's going to be aliens. There's going to be all sorts coming out.
Well, with aliens, the Pentagon did release.
He's going. There's aliens, by the way. There are aliens.
They basically said the stories of Bob, do you know Bob Lazar? You know the stories of Bob Lazar at all?
Mm-mm.
So he worked at a place near Area 51, right next to it, as somebody who was a occultations expert. So basically, they just studied travel. And he was studying an alien aircraft for many months, not how to fly it, but how it was flying, essentially.
What, as in they had one to test with?
Yeah, they had multiple fuel sources, and these fuel sources, they moved the vehicle of this UFO type craft, and really interesting story. But anyway, the Pentagon a couple of weeks ago released an article, I think it was via the New York Times, saying that they have found alien craft. They don't know where it's come from, but they have found it and they have it. Which kind of everything that Bob Lazar was saying 20, 30 years ago has actually become apparent, and everything that he said has turned out to be quite true. So,
are there pictures of it?
Of what, the craft?
Yeah.
I don't think there's pictures of the craft because it is quite, very, very low key. And
I'm thinking if they're talking like this is official stuff, right? Is this coming out of the government?
Yeah.
So surely, if you're going to talk about it and say it's there, wouldn't you show pictures, videos?
I don't know. It's one of them things, isn't it? With aliens, like there's so much speculation about things happening, not just in the past 100 years, but thousands of years ago. That's looking at religions and cave paintings and things like that. It almost seems a lot of advancement of technology wasn't due to actual people on Earth, but help from extraterrestrial life, which is you can take that with what you want, but it's very interesting. I mean, nowadays it's very hush up about because you don't really know, do you? And if they do have it, and I think they do have things like UFOs, and they found alien evidence, and I just don't know what the public would do with it all. That's the problem.
What do you think they'd show the pictures of the spacecraft and that say this is real now? By the way, there are aliens and they've landed on Earth. Everyone loses their mind, starts destroying stuff, kind of like they're doing already in the cities.
Well, yeah, it is that. I don't think that necessarily would happen, but you'll get a lot of people who will question it. They'll call bullshit, and they won't believe it. And then you've got flat Earth, wherever that stemmed from, something else. It's obviously against the government and.
Wait, sorry, Kyran. Are you telling me you're a round earther?
Excuse me. I think the Earth's shaped like you're already.
Well, I had a good one for my mum recently because I love a good conspiracy. Absolutely love it. I will go down the rabbit hole any day because it is so much fun. But the flat Earth one, right? So I can't remember what I was talking to her about actually, but there was some conspiracy or what she deemed to be a conspiracy. And she then turned around to me and goes, "Oh God, next you'll tell me you're a flat earther." And I just turned to her and went, "Can you prove to me the Earth is round?" And she just looked at me like, "Ian, please, just stop." And I did it just to wind her up, sort of thing. But the funniest thing is when you say if somebody says to you, "Oh, I can't believe you believe there's a conspiracy or something," and you say, "Can you prove there isn't?" that just blows people's mind. Like, I can't handle this. No, you're just turning crazy now. And all you're doing is asking the question, can you prove? Or are you actually like just listening to somebody else tell you that this is fact, and you haven't checked anything, you haven't seen it, and you're just taking it in and spewing it back out again?
Well,
and that's all you're doing. Why can't you
that's
question everything?
What's happening with everything nowadays? You know, whether whether it be flat Earth, whether it be race issues, freedom of speech, you know, Black Lives Matter, anything to do with current society. There's so much information out there on it, but there's also so much misinformation, and it's so easy to look at a clickbait, you know, a clickbait headline, and just read the title, and that's all you need to see. So, you know, I've seen that a few times. I look at the title and be like, Jesus, that doesn't, you know, make sense. I click on it, I read the article, and it's nothing to do with what they've said on the headline. The headline gets you to click, but people don't even click, and they don't even look at it because it takes too long. It takes too long to read a 2-page article, and you know, I say that because I do that all the time. Sometimes I look at it, I can't really be asked to look at this, or you'll see a headline and there's a video, you want to watch the video, but there's a 10-second advert or a 20-second advert you have to watch, and you can't be asked to watch it. So all you've seen is the headline and maybe a tiny little bit much, and people base their own, you know, viewpoints of the world on these little snippets of nothing, really.
Don't talk to us about adverts. Adrienne is very upset. She's had a new phone, and she constantly gets adverts now. Like anytime she wants to watch a video on Facebook, on YouTube, anything, it's 2 adverts now. It's not even one, is it? It's one 15-second advert and then another 5-second advert that you're allowed to skip after 5 seconds. But on her previous phone, she didn't have to. No,
it didn't have anything in YouTube. And I noticed with Catherine, I noticed, there was a 5-second advert. And then all of a sudden it was an 8-second advert. I don't even remember 8 seconds. And then it was 2 5-seconds or 1 10-second now. And
I missed that skip button.
I know some of them you can, but then some of them you can't. You have to watch the full 5 seconds. You're like, oh, God.
The worst thing is it, you sat there, you look at it, come on, I'll be able to skip this one. Sure. Skip. I don't want to watch it for 20 seconds.
Well, really, all of this is just first world problems. I mean, it's not it's not really that important. Look at us spewing our little privileges to everything.
It affects my life seriously.
All the seconds add up. It does add up.
Yeah, so you're looking at it like, you are wasting my life right now.
Yeah.
It makes me sound worse, doesn't it?
What if they did that whole thing where, do you know, they go, how many minutes or whatever you waste in your lifetime, in a year or something like that.
I wouldn't want to see that.
Thing.
No way would I want to see that.
Well, you can have a look at how much time you spend on Instagram. It tells you how much activity you spend on there. Yeah, I don't know how you do it, but I'm sure there's a way.
Oh, that would be disgusting. Not for me, because I'm barely on it. I don't really use Instagram, but that would be disgusting for people to see. Because you used to get it on like PlayStation games and things like that, didn't you? You'd be able to see how many hours you've logged on this one game, and you'd look at it sometimes and go, "Oh, I need to get better things in my life." Well, it'd make you feel really bad about yourself.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 game play time was about 50 days, which I was good at the game, but Jesus, 50 days of my life spent on Call of Duty.
The thing that you're actually on about that tells you how long you've been on the PlayStation. Is that actually me?
Oh, is it you? Ian, you've been sat there for 2 days now. Can you get dressed? Maybe have a shower?
Well, I game all the time. I'm a massive gamer. You'll ask Catherine, and you know I'm always gaming. I really do enjoy it. It was quite interesting actually because I'm such a Joe Rogan fan. He came out and said how gaming is such a waste of time, and I was like, oh, Joe, come on.
What? Joe?
I know, but the thing is,
there's no need for that.
No. That's a completely silly thing to say. Just because of the benefits I see with gaming, and a lot of people do as well.
Do you know what? For some people, having fun and enjoying your life is, I don't know, going out to the park, going out with friends, doing this, doing that. Other people, it's going online, playing with your friends, and playing games.
Not even that. I play games on my own. I prefer like Dark Souls and hard strategy game, things like that because it's challenging. I don't particularly like online play. I kind of grew out of that when I was about 17 or 18. I got fed up with it.
I stopped liking it when they started making you pay for it every term.
Yeah, that's annoying.
That's what's killed it for me. But I mean, I only just started playing it online a little bit, and then when I was starting to see, you can get it. It was one of the things you'd start to see these little things where it's like you can get a little bit further, a little bit quicker if you just pay this amount and buy this. And I'm like, so everybody's buying this stuff, and that's why they're better than me.
Well, did you know that in
I'm sure it's not
FIFA,
the only reason, but
the franchise of FIFA, they actually make more money on Ultimate Team than they do with disc sales and downloads. Because of people making little purchases, which I've done and kids do. I mean, I remember about 6 or 7 years ago, I had my mum's credit card on my PlayStation account. I used to buy FIFA points with it. And
no, you didn't. You weren't one of them. You didn't use your mum's card for that.
I did. I was naughty. What can I say? She wasn't very happy, but you know, I moved out, so it worked out.
I left, but it's fine. I left the house. She carried the debt. It's all good.
Did you manage to have a read of that James Damore memo?
That's the guy from Google, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I had a little look at that. I have to say, it was honestly to listen to him entirely was a little bit of a struggle because he wasn't particularly charismatic to listen to. But I get what he was on about, and I don't think he was wrong. But he's an easy scapegoat, if I'm honest. He's one of them people that is an easy target for a company to shut down and tell to go away, because although because he was on Joe Rogan, he was on loads of news channels and that, it's not particularly memorable. It's not going to stick in people's minds. They kind of already know the things that go on. He didn't present anything truly shocking. And maybe that's the problem.
With current culture and, you know, this kind of culture that we're living in now, with everything that's kind of transpired in the past few months and so many social apparent issues that keep cropping up. This kind of started 5 years ago, and you know, there's a few people who I follow kind of predicted what was happening in the universities, and it's transpiring over to life, and it is affecting a lot of people. And with the whole links to freedom of speech, which is the issue, and obviously the big thing with your podcast. You can't talk about these issues and policies and without being labelled someone on the opposite side of the party. And it's not even to an extent that they're just saying, we disagree with you. And this is the problem that I find with a lot of it. They'll start using words like Nazis and, you know, racists, homophobes, all of these languages. But to people who aren't what they say, you know, according to wokeism, there's more Nazis living in the UK than there was in 1930s Germany, which is absolutely hilarious. And you know, it's so silly. And by using all these words, it's almost demeaning the fact of what the actual word is. You know, Brian over the road is not a Nazi. A Nazi is an actual Nazi.
No, I think you're totally spot on. I think that is one of the major issues is the fact that people are using words out of context. They're using, for example, you know, where people go, literally this, literally that. And you haven't literally done anything. You're not talking about anything literally. You're just using the word. And that's where we're starting to lose people, because they're dumbing down these words.
They are losing people because what's kind of happened, and I've always been a massive lefty, especially a few years ago. I would have voted for Corbyn. You know, I was proper on the woo, let's do this train, and I think that's when all of this kind of started to kind of become apparent. And I look a couple of years ago, and obviously the wage gap was obviously such an issue along the news. You know, women getting paid less, and which is fine, but the problem is, like, obviously what they're saying is correct. There is a wage gap, but the reason as to why they were saying is an actual wage gap is completely wrong. They were just putting it down to the fact that it's women's oppression, and you know, men are just get paid more because they're actually men, which isn't correct at all. You know, there's a lot of other variables as to why people get paid certain things. Yeah,
you can't look at it as just one thing. There's so many different facets to it. I mean, even something like a clique. You know, these people might be pally with each other, and you haven't managed to get into the clique. And it might not necessarily be that you're a woman. It might not necessarily be that you're from a particular ethnicity, however you say it, ethnicity. But you're not part of that group that they enjoy being around. And there's an old saying, isn't there? And it is that it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Well, it is a little bit like that. But, I mean, I believe personally in a capitalist society that successful people aren't necessarily based on who they know, but actually, I think our society is based on performance of people operating at the highest, level that they can. I forgot the word that I'm trying to use for that. But I think that's how our society works.
But that depends on the position they're in, because the people in management tend to be very untalented. And I just thought this is.
I think the talent's there. They just don't have the experience.
The reason I say this, and I thought about this as soon as I said it, because this is no slight on you, because when I first met you, you were my manager. But it's no slight on people who are managers. It is people who, it's like that to those who can't do teach. It's very similar.
Those who can't teach gym.
You might be onto something there.
But, no, you don't know the quote, School of Rock. Come on.
Oh, wait, I've missed that one. School of Rock. Adrian, that sounds like your sort of thing. Oh, see, you didn't have your headphones in, did you?
I heard.
Oh, you heard it? Okay. The reason I say that is there's not been many managers that I've particularly remembered as being good managers in a way. A manager for me always leads from the front. In actual fact, actually, you are a good example, because whenever I saw you in work, whenever I came in for a shift, you were actually talking to everybody. You were making sure people were doing what they're meant to be doing, and you were buzzing around the place and being at the forefront of it. That's what a manager does. As well as doing the background work, and obviously, you've got tedious paperwork and things like that to do, but you have to show that you can do everything all the staff can do and better, and still do all the other background stuff. Because as soon as you disappear as a manager, which 90% of the managers I've met, they disappear for half the shift. You don't know what they're doing. After a while, you do know they're not doing much, because you start to see patterns of things, and it just doesn't work that way. Because I've been in management myself. From about 17, I got into management. I've had my own businesses. I've got my own businesses. I know what you need to do in a position of management and when you're running a business. And I've watched so many of them, and they just don't understand what it means to be a manager. They think when you get that title or when you get that position, that's it. You can now ease off and watch everybody else do the work. And it doesn't work like that. You've got to work even harder. But,
you do.
But where I say that not many of them are talented, or they're not very talented bunch, is because a lot of them get hired into the position because of the people they know who are already there or above them. My first management job was because of the person I knew, but it was from the person I knew from my previous employment who I worked under, and said, actually, you were quite good in the job. I'd actually be quite happy to have you as my assistant manager. And I got into it, and that actually gave me a good break. So I was lucky. But so many just don't care. They get to that position like, I can do this, I can do that, which is just cushy.
I think that's down to obviously other people who are above them managers as well. Obviously, if you do have a general manager and they're never there, they kind of got put in a position because of who they knew. There's a lot of examples about that, but I think that's more anecdotal than anything, because I think a lot of businesses do well, and I think competence is the word that I was trying to use earlier. I think managers have to be competent, and what you're saying, obviously, some people aren't, but I'd probably say the majority of managers are. And I get what you're saying with, obviously, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Like, you can bring, obviously, people externally into a business. Say if they were hiring at the Sandy Mount House where he was, and there was a general manager position, you can externally hire, but along with that probably comes about 5 or 6 months training where you don't know how the person's going to fit in. So it's a big risk. Obviously, look at previous experiences. But if you have someone within the business itself that they can do some of the jobs, it's a lot of a quicker process, and they already know the staff. So to a certain extent, sometimes who you know is a lot better, because if you bring somebody into the business that you already know, you already trust, already know their work ethic, then I think the business will be in the right path to succeed a lot better than sometimes if you bring somebody brand new in. However, it can be taken advantage of, like you said, and they can be there. And I think that's what's happened in, to be honest with you, when our previous job first opened. They didn't employ the right people. They spent a lot of money. It didn't work at all. And, whoever's going to be there now has to try and pick up the pieces of to be honest, the shit that came for the first year of opening. And it was poor management. And it's exactly what you said. They employed somebody who they knew, and it didn't work.
There is that, isn't there? Right, that's a particular subject in place that is a difficult subject for me. I don't know about for you per se, because I actually lost my job there in Sandymount during the pandemic, and it wasn't because of redundancies. It was actually on my part, and I have emails and things to prove it. On my part, it was because I was terminated because I was the one employee that stood out that asked for my wages when we were asked to defer them until a later date, and when they couldn't provide me with a later date because they said there was no money in the coffers, I said I couldn't accept that, because should they go bust, I don't get anything at all, and I've got to make sure I've got money to put food on the table. So I weighed up my options. I asked for the money, and I was sacked the day before payday. After I did actually tell them that, because it would have been a breach of contract should they not have paid me, and they decided not to do that. So they sacked me the day before, made up a load of reasons why I was sacked. As far as I'm concerned, they were untrue, and everybody else stayed on. But when they said they would defer their wages, the last I heard, apparently they're not getting them now. A lot of people missed out on a lot of money. So it's a very unfortunate situation, especially when you look at it as a company that is apparently helping the locals. They started up a charity during the time to feed the locals, and the money was going to go to charity that they made as profit. I don't know what happened with that. But for me, it's a bit rich to say you're going to look after the community or your local community when you're not paying the staff that are part of the local community. I think that's a bit rich.
At least one thing with your dismissal, Ian, is the fact that they at least gave you a reason. I didn't really get one, to be honest with you. It was quite frustrating.
It was from what you sort of mentioned before, it sounded more circumstance and collateral damage.
Pretty much, I think, because I know. It's not that I think. It's more the fact that I know, and they knew. Everybody knew that I was doing a good job. We had the stock evidence of that. We had the savings evidence of that. The team seemed to be working a lot better than it did middle of May when I first arrived. And, people started having goals, steps for progress, and enjoyed coming to work.
Because when I was there before you, there was not a lot of training. You were just kind of put into the position. I mean, luckily for me, I did have a fair bit of experience. The people that hired me could see that, and they kind of, rightly or wrongly, just threw me in and just went, there you go, there's the bar, go do it. And I was just like, okay. But when you came in, you were adamant people do training, which is absolutely right, because at the end of the day, their business in hospitality is all about serving the customer and the customer experience. And if your staff don't know what they're doing and they don't know what they're presenting to the customers aren't happy. But you were insistent that happened, and I could see that coming on.
The thing that you have to think about with the Sandymount houses as well, like, I've worked in businesses where you can kind of get away with not training staff. Look at Stonegate, like a pub chain, similar to like Wetherspoons in the lower class tiers of what they are. And you can get away with not having any training because customer service isn't a focus. It's literally just fast money, cheap prices, in and out, see you later. But if you're spending, £90, £100 on a bottle of wine with £50 per person on the meals, like, there's a certain standard that you have to reach. And when I kind of first arrived, that wasn't really there. You know, they had some right people there. I mean, God, Mike was absolutely fantastic and probably still is. And, you know, he's one of my favourite people to work with.
He was one of the shining examples in there. You know, the guy, apart from never going home, he was there helping everybody.
I loved Mike. He was very nice.
Yeah.
You know, I hope to see him again soon because I haven't seen him. There's a few people who I enjoy there. You know, it's a shame to go without really even getting a goodbye. But
yeah, because I walked in and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh, have you heard about Kyran?" I was like, "No, why? What's happened? What training is he trying to put on us now? What have I got to learn this time?" And then, "Oh no, he's been sacked." I was like, "Huh? Where'd that come from?" And Chloe's gone as well. I was like, "Okay." And like, was there a reason? No, nobody knows what's going on. Oh, okay. So it's just another cloud above us of secrecy that nobody knows what's happening anymore.
Oh, it's all secrecy there. It's all secrecy. And, you know, it goes back to the point of training, you know, especially with what you were saying with poor managers. You know, there's a lot of young staff that work at the Sandymount House, and, you know, we tried to steer them in a way where they didn't think of, because hospitality, people just think it's just a bar job. They don't really see it as an actual career, which is quite frustrating because there's so many opportunities in hospitality. You know, there's so many restaurants and bars and pubs and hotels, you know, even working on ships abroad, you know, doing that kind of, there's so many different little bits that you can do. And trying to educate them being the age of 14, 15, 16, 17 going up, you can mold them into something that you want for a 5-year development. And that's what people don't necessarily see. Currently, they see a certain member of staff and they'll probably assume a lot of these will go. They won't put the training into them because they're not thinking three years down the line where, oh, we've got a 15-year-old who can hopefully be already bar trained, know how to do the bar, can cash up, do all the cocktails by the time they're 17. So when they go to 18, they can work the bar straight away. And you've got an asset as opposed to somebody who's brand new starting. You see what I mean?
Yeah. There's such a high turnover in that sort of field of work. It's beyond, like, they don't pay a lot of money in comparison to like minimum wage and whatnot, but there's such a high turnover because they don't treat the staff well. And what you'll find is during the summer or busy periods, they absolutely ram the staff. I mean, they will get every last bit of energy out of them. And then once they're spent, if they either want to leave or they don't need them anymore, they're gone, and they get the next one in to do it again. And it's kind of like a revolving door. So I guess that's why there's not much training.
It's a revolving door because, you know, I've done hospitality for, since, you know, 10 years, shall we say. I've done pretty much every level of it. And yes, it doesn't pay well, and this goes across a lot of jobs that are like that. It doesn't pay well because it's such an easy job to do.
You can jump in and out of it very easy.
Yeah, you can go in and out very easily. Now, obviously, it can be quite difficult to actually run a table section, but, you know, if you're literally just there, you know, at times at the Sandymount House, we didn't particularly care about the performance. When we were peak summer, I had just arrived, there was no members of staff. Like, God, I've not got time to fanny around with picking the right person out. It's just like, you got a pair of hands, he worked on a bar, yeah, right, go.
Got 2 legs, 2 hands, go do this.
And, you know, that's just how it works. And that transpires everywhere because it is such an easy job. And, you know, turning it back to kind of touchy subjects as opposed to kind of, you know, Sandymount House is a bit of a touchy one in some areas. But, you know, there is low-paid jobs. And looking at what's been saying over the news in the past couple of days, you know, immigration, with immigrants earning less money than obviously people who have already lived, you know, they're kind of classing it as white males, really, and they're comparing the stats. But, you know, looking at these jobs that immigrants kind of take.
Everything is compared to white males right now.
Well, yeah, because Western society is a white male patriarchy. But, you know, the immigrants that are coming over, there's a reason as to why they don't make as much money. They are in rougher areas. It's one, because most of these immigrants coming over are first-generation immigrants. You can't expect to come over to the UK and be high earning straight away when, one, you've got no skills, you can barely speak the language, and you haven't really got anywhere proper to live. You know, all of them that play into factors, and the immigrants will take the cleaning jobs and the low-paid skilled labour jobs, and they'll hopefully have their children get into a school, and then the children can learn away, and then that's when it grows. as
You've got to
opposed
start
to
from somewhere, though. You got to start from You got to start from somewhere, and there's a reason why they're coming over here. It's not because they're just like, oh, my country's not that great. I'm a bit bored. I'm going to come over. No, these people are uprooting their lives because they have to. You know, the countries they're coming from, like we'll hear, oh, they're coming from this country, that country, Syria, or wherever else, and they're like, why are they coming over here? Because our nations have possibly bombed their country quite recently, and they've lost their homes. So you can't. If you go and deal in their politics, or you actually go and deal them a blow of bombing their country, you have to deal with the consequences of a displaced populace. And where are they going to go? They're going to try and go where they've been told the money is, which is the UK. It's one of the top places to go for money.
The problem is, you know, I've got my auntie and uncle. They've been in immigration pretty much all their life. You know, working with immigrations officers at you know, like Gatwick, Heathrow, and they actually live in Abu Dhabi now. And I'm pretty sure she's head of visa control or something like that for the whole Middle East. So yeah, quite an important person in terms of immigration. You know, I had this conversation with her quite a few times, and it's just the fact that, yes, what you say is true. People are fear for their lives coming over, but not everyone feels that way. And it's quite, it's not, I'm not saying it's silly, but it almost is in a sense to, you know, just say everyone that's coming over, they're in fear for their life, because some of them aren't. And some of them as well, you'll get pregnant women, they'll board the plane from where they are, they'll arrive in a UK airport, and they're about to go into labour. And the only reason why they've flown over is because they can use our hospital. Yes, it's safer, but obviously it's free healthcare. It doesn't cost them anything. They can have their baby for free on us, which, you know, that's great for the baby. It's great for them. But it's actually costing us a lot of money, because there's a lot of people like that. And that's obviously just one little example.
Is that not more... so where people are like blaming these immigrants for coming over, and people would look at that and go, oh, how terrible this person. Is that not quite a rational decision by an expectant mother to think there's a hospital in that country that is actually better and more, you know, a more suitable place to have a baby? Plus, it won't cost me my house or whatever else it will cost them. Is that not quite rational? And is it really her that should be blamed for it?
The problem is, there's one rationality, obviously one person, but obviously you can times that by 1,000 per day for the next year, which if they all come over, this one example is obviously a pregnant lady, that tots up to a lot of money that's costing the NHS, which obviously is struggling as is. And go on.
I was going to say, we'll put it this way, because you said like 1,000 per day. Apparently, the latest figures, which I saw earlier, I haven't seen where the official figures have come from, but the last I heard today,
I didn't say I meant as a kind of
as
figure.
an example.
Oh, you could say 1,000 a day. It, you know, adds up.
Yeah. But the actual figure apparently is about 4,000 this year, which in the grand, I don't know whether that's reduced or gone up because of COVID or anything else. But
that's 4,000 who have crossed the channel.
Yeah, but that's not exactly, considering how many people are in the UK, it's not exactly drastic, is it?
No, but that's that. I'm not talking about people who have come across on a boat. I'm talking about people who fly into ports of entry to pretty much seek asylum and say, I'm about to have a baby, I want my free healthcare.
But how are we viewing these people as well? Like what for where people are getting annoyed about them coming over, whether illegal or not, how are we viewing them? Why are we getting annoyed that they're coming here, apart from, yes, they're going to use services? To be honest with you,
I think there is pros and there's cons to immigrants coming over. Obviously, the more there is, there's more money that's getting taken into the economy. But then obviously a counter argument is the more that comes, there's less jobs for people who actually live here. But then you can say there's quite a large population who quite happily sit at home and claim the benefits. What I really don't agree with, and Australia's system for immigration gets a lot of stick, you know, for the fact that people don't, you know, they say it's quite racist, you know, the traffic light system. And if you want to go and move over there, you know, permanently, I'm pretty sure you have to find a job and show that you're working in order to get through. I can't see a problem with that. I think here, if you come over here as an immigrant, you have 6 months to get work and start contributing. If you can do that, that's absolutely great. Because I'm not saying, because look at the NHS. Most of their doctors, a lot of them are immigrants. It is that's kind of what it is, and it is a huge necessity.
Of which, without a lot of them, we would be in a really bad position.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think we would. Yeah, absolutely. But the people who just kind of come over here just to claim the benefits, I think they should be removed, because they're not contributing anything towards our society. And there is the argument that why should the person who's just been born here be able to just stay here and live off? Well, that's country of origin. That's a birthplace. That's just how the world works. It is your right as a British citizen to be here.
Shouldn't this fall more on the government? Because this isn't a new problem, is it? It's not like this has just sprung up in the last few years, maybe the last decade. This has gone on for a long, long time, and people have moved around the globe for centuries. So why is it no government has managed to put in place an integration system for illegal immigrants? Okay, they come over illegally, and you go, you naughty people, you shouldn't have done that, but we're going to integrate you in. This is how we do it. You will have to find work, and we'll help you do that. If you are not able to, we'll have to, do something else. I don't know what that would be, but surely by now there should be something. I mean, come on, they couldn't create anything.
Take America, obviously, it's one of the largest countries in the world with the highest populations, and their legal immigration waiting list, I think, is about 45 million, which is absolutely ridiculous. That's people waiting. They let in, I think, about 1 million legally, and then 2 million illegal come through. Right. So they get about 3 million per year. 1 million of them are legal. 2 million of them roughly are illegal. That's a massive amount of people coming into the country, and there has to be a cap. You can't just say, right, if you want to come in. There has to be, because there's not enough room, there's not enough housing, there's not enough jobs, there's not anything. It has to be a limit, and there has to be a cap, and they always go over the cap anyway. No matter what government comes into place and say, right, we're only allowing set amount, they'll go probably double or sometimes triple that. Always immigrants are going to come over. It's just, I don't know. You can see it though. The cities where there's obviously a high density of immigrants that come in. Birmingham, you can go to Luton, and there isn't really many white people, especially in places like Luton. It's predominantly an immigrant area, and you see a lot more of that now, because obviously they join their friends and join their family, and they're starting to grow out, which is absolutely fine. But we need to work together in order to mix, because you see, like Luton, it's predominantly immigrants, and there isn't many white people in there. But there's a cross of culture where both sides of both sides of the races don't really like each other, and I don't know what we can do with that.
It's not exactly an easy situation. It's not an easy situation. It's not black and white, but there should be a system in place already that can help people coexist. Like I said, integration. If when they get here, they feel like they're already being, I don't know what the word would be for them, but they're being segregated. They're not treated maybe as nicely as they could be. They don't feel very welcomed. So straight away, you're going to be on the defensive. You're going to have your back up a little bit. Think about the journey they've just made over, because I guarantee it wasn't easy. If they're coming illegally, it's not an easy journey. They're tired. No. But now some people might be, because there is an argument that, there's criminals and there's this coming in. Yeah, I'm sure there is. But there's already criminals in this country, in the UK as well. And you should treat everybody exactly as, you shouldn't be treating the migrants any different to you treating the rest of the people in the UK. Oh, also, someone, I'm not sure, Emily, I've not heard of this person called I'm only joking. Emily, who we worked with in Sandymount, has said, hey, to my favourite ex-colleagues.
Hi, Emily.
I don't know if you remember that cheeky little thing.
Yeah. She also asks what's your opinion on pineapple on pizza. We didn't even go there.
No, it's not.
We don't even go there.
Oh, we made pizza for your family recently, and your mum wanted pineapple on it. Oh, God. I could barely make it.
You didn't, I did.
Yeah, you did in the end. Everybody, pineapple doesn't go on pizza. stop doing it. Do you have pineapple on pizza, Kyran?
I don't like it. I don't worry, it's fine. I just ham. I'd scrape the pineapple off.
Actually, I did want to ask you as well. So, the whole COVID thing, how has it actually changed your life, or has it? Like, has it really? How badly has it affected you, job-wise, or
well,
at home?
I lost my job. I left Sandy Mount. Obviously, got let loose from Sandy Mount House and found myself in a position that I'd not really been in before. I'd never been sacked for any reason. Didn't really know what to do, and I took a job just working in one of the local pubs in Carnarvon, and it kind of this was before obviously the virus, and that kind of hit me quite hard because I'd just gone from pretty much running an establishment to just kind of working the bar, and it was just, it was a breath of fresh air, but it seemed so pointless going to work, and I wanted to kind of get into the fire service, and that's it. It was a 6-month wait before anything kind of happened. And then obviously the virus came, and I lost my job working in the pub. Well, I was on furlough for 3 months. Every month it kind of got halved with the amount of money that I got. And then they let me go.
Every month got halved?
Pretty much, yeah. I started with, whatever I did, and then I got about £300 less, and then the last pay was about 200 quid for a month. And I was just
How's that? How did that work? I thought you meant to get 80% of your last 3 months on average or something like that?
Yeah, well, that's it. The first one, that was right. But then as the months went on, it just seemed to get less. I didn't question it because I couldn't really do anything. So I applied for job seekers, got onto that for a few weeks, which was shit anyway. I got about £75 a week. But I was only on it for about a week anyway. I was on it for about a week, and then I got a job with Yodel, and I've just been working with Yodel ever since. So I'm enjoying that.
My parcels are never arriving.
Well, I don't do Holyhead. I kind of stay away from shitholes. Hey, the stories from the Carnarvon folk about Holyhead people, so I won't say anything.
Well, I've lived in both areas. So I'd say that Holyhead is actually a lovely place to live in. Please don't egg my house. It's not my fault he has these views.
Cancel him.
Yeah, cancelled, Kyran. Cancelled. If there's a reason to cancel anyone, it's for dissing the area that I live in.
Dear me.
So what do you see going forward now then for yourself? Because now you're working with Yodel. You can go to work as normal in a way, but you're self-employed with Yodel, though, right?
They deliver all my parcels to me in the morning, and then I just go out on my day. I'm self-employed as well, so I do use my own car, which is a bit frustrating, but it's fine. All I do is just listen to podcasts and music all day and deliver my parcels, 6-hour day.
It's not a bad job. It's not a bad job.
But I'm trying to get into the fire service. So next week I've got my physical exam. Next Wednesday, and then I will have a panel interview with about 3 or 4 different people from different areas of the service for North Wales, and just have like a formal interview with a panel, and that's the last one. I've passed 3 tests already,
Nice.
So it's just 2 more, but the last one's the real big one.
I'm sorry to tell you, they don't generally let scrawny people in.
Do they not? So why are you saying that to me?
I've seen your push-ups.
I've seen your push-ups, mister. Have you done yours today, by the way?
The ones that
You haven't?
No, I haven't. You mean the ones that I have to keep doing 50 altogether because I keep forgetting to do them?
That's not my fault.
Well, it is your fault because you tagged me in it and told me to do it.
Yeah. Jump, Ian. How high? How high?
And now I feel pressured. Every day I'm like, I haven't done the press-ups. I haven't done them.
No, I tell you what though, Ian, you're the only person. I'm on day 21 today, and you're the only person that's done it. So I've tagged 20 other people, and each of them, and all my mates gave me shit on the first day about it all, and I tagged them, and they can't even do the fucking press ups, and I'm just like, disappointing, absolute disappointing.
If anyone tries to nominate me, I'm just going to pretend like my Facebook broke. Because I can't even do one.
Don't even bother. She doesn't take part in any of them. I got a shock when I first tried to do them, you know, because luckily, actually, because I saw this trend happening where people were doing these press ups for 25 for 25 days.
Yeah.
And I saw a couple and I was like, well, I'm sure I could do that. So I started doing it. I think I did it for like 5 days because I had no challenge of anybody actually challenging me. So I had no reason to carry on with it.
Yeah.
I have no friends. I have none. That's why I'm doing a podcast. I'm trying to make friends.
Trying to make friends. I thought we were already friends, Ian.
Well, luckily, I had one friend to bring on. But I went to do it first of all. The first day I tried to do them, right, I struggled to do 5. It had been so long since I'd done them. I was so embarrassed of myself. I was like, I can't believe I can't do 5. So luckily, I'd already started doing it.
The thing that I don't understand is like I normally do about 300 press ups as a warm up, along with when the gyms were open, along with pull ups and squats. And like I'd normally do like 10 every 30 seconds or something like that.
Oh, there you go.
So
do you know what he's like? What's his name?
People are doing it.
No.
He's telling me 25 press ups is quite a lot, and I was like, no, it's not.
No. You're starting to sound like Ron Burgundy here. He's just like 999, 1,000. I don't know if you heard me there. I did 1,000.
That was a good Ron Burgundy.
Thank you.
Oh,
cheers.
So obviously, along with COVID came the riots and the movement for Black Lives Matter, George Floyd.
Have you seen the latest video of the body cam?
The body cam. I have seen the body cam before.
What do you think?
It's interesting. I think it didn't show anything to do with racism. I can't really pinpoint a racist point of the video. What I did see was more of a fact of poor training from the police. A case of actually obviously killing him. But I mean, George himself was quite jumpy. He kept saying things. He said he couldn't breathe before he went down to the ground. Somehow
he was clearly
on the ground. I mean,
as far as I could tell, when he was saying he couldn't breathe, and they weren't on him at the time, he looked like he was having a panic attack.
Well, he did, yeah. And somebody actually said he's having a heart attack in the background. They said he's having a heart attack, and he's like, I can't breathe. And I don't know. You don't. The thing is, you're not in that situation, and the police officer is, and they should be trained better in order to make the situation a lot easier for both sides. I think what you get a lot nowadays in terms of generic is the culture against the police is people don't want to kind of say yes to the police. They don't really want to listen to the police, and that creates the culture of where, especially in America, where they're almost afraid of every interaction because the police themselves are afraid of the people. Because obviously,
but that shouldn't be the case. If you're in that position, you don't go into the army and go into a war-torn country, being absolutely, I'm sure they do, some people are scared. It's a scary thing. You can't go into it absolutely terrified, and the people around you are like scared that you might shoot somebody out of nowhere. It doesn't work like that.
The problem is with the army is the fact that the army have continuous training. They're always training, they're always drilling, they're always informed, they're always putting their skills to a test.
Yeah.
I think with the police at the moment, this goes kind of here and there in America, is there's not enough of them in order to stop the crime. Look at places like in Detroit with the shootings. You can even take London with knife crime. If you flooded that with police who actually train correctly, then I think crime would go down dramatically. Especially in places like America, just for the fact of what goes on there. I mean, there shouldn't be a war against police. It's not loads of police shooting black people all the time. It's not white police shooting black police. It's not white police officers just arresting black people in London for stop and searches because they're black. There's things that go along with that.
There are clearly cases of it, but it's not limited to that. That's the thing. But that's what makes it worse.
If you take London, for example, with knife crime, from what I read on the government statistics, it's equal for stop and search in London. Due to, according to race, it's 37% black, 37% white, and then whatever else they make up for stop and searches. So technically, it's actually the same. Now, what you kind of have to think about in London with knife crime is it is mainly black people who are causing the crime itself. So if there's one kind of ethnicity that's causing an issue a lot more than the others, obviously you have to target the ethnicity that is causing more issues because they are proportionately a lot larger than the others. You know, I'd expect the same thing if it was a lot of white people in a really, you know, in a white area. If they were, do you see what I mean?
But are they being targeted though? I mean, for example, if you put it this way, right? So you'd say that the amount of crime would go down if you'd have more police that are better trained, right?
Yeah.
Does that not necessarily mean that if they were better trained, they might actually understand the difference between somebody breaking the law and somebody not breaking the law, and not just stopping people, not necessarily just pulling them over, which some police do pull people over because they just can. There are certain acts that they can use to just pull somebody over for no reason other than you're driving, and I'm going to talk to you, and then I'm going to make my mind up on whether I can get you on something. And then, again, that's not limited to somebody of a certain ethnicity. It's not necessarily somebody that's black or anything else. It is literally they have these, which they talk about regularly, these powers that they have, which is a horrible term to use. I don't like it at all because it really makes them sound like they stand over you, which they should. You shouldn't feel like that. I mean, I'm too young to remember this, but constantly you get the old policing used to be they were part of the community, and you would know your local police officer as well. You know, now you don't feel like you do. You feel like it's just this person with a power trip sometimes, and I've had a couple of experiences with them.
That's going against the police, though. Like, I don't think naturally what the police do is constantly wrong. I think that by saying, especially nowadays, oh, there's a black person who's getting stop and searched and then he's going to get arrested for doing absolutely nothing. I think that's quite easy to say, and because that narrative's easy to say, a lot of people push it, and then that creates the divide between the police. Like you said, years and years ago, the police person used to be the person in the community that everyone knows and everyone likes. People used to want to grow up to be a policeman, but nowadays, why on earth would I want to grow up to be a policeman if the views of society is what they actually are now? Because it's causing, I think, a cause for concern. Because there's nobody who wants to be going into the police. People want the police to be defunded. They don't look at the state of Chaz. I mean, in America, obviously, they were a self-autonomous zone. They were arguing 1 minute that they want to defund the police, get rid of the police. Then they took 6 blocks of their own in America, created their own little zone, put a border up, and then had people guarding as police. And then when people started to get killed because of the crime rates, because there's no police in there, they were asking, where are the police? Where are the police? I mean, there has to be a meet in the middle. And I think both sides of the police need to do a lot better to work with each other. I don't think it's just the police's fault. I don't think it's just the public's fault. I think more of the fact it is the public at the moment, because it's quite easy to, like I say, force a narrative against something that you don't like, because it's easy to call racism and it's easy to call whatever they want to say. Well, in reality, that's not actually what it is, and there's a deeper meaning behind what's happening in the person's life that is saying racist or something like that. People don't, walk down the street and all of a sudden get arrested for no absolute reason. You can't just arrest somebody because
they can because they can find something.
Arrest you. Well, if they think you look like a subject because you're walking down the street, you're wearing a black hoodie and blue jeans, and you're black yourself, right? They target you, they ask you, and then they arrest you because you fit the image. That's really easy for them to say, and that is something that I would say you can't comment on unless you know the situation. But even if that was a racist act, there isn't enough of that to say that the act is racist. I think there is analogies, I think there's anecdotes of racism, but just because there is little snippets of racism that may happen doesn't mean that the whole system is racist.
True. But have you ever heard of suspicion? Now, this is a term that they like to throw around. It's not suspicion of a particular crime. It's you're looking suspicious. And the reason I say that is not from my personal experience, because I'm not around the police enough to have this happen. but the best evidence you can get is video evidence. And when you look at, now people will mock this. If you go on YouTube, there are probably more than hundreds of examples now. There's probably thousands of examples of police officers being filmed. And now some people argue these people are provoking these reactions, right? There are guys that go around, they'll film police stations or they'll film certain areas. Some of them just literally go in the square, like Carnarvon, where you've got the open square there. They'll stand there with a professional looking camera set up on a tripod. But if you're in an inner city, some of these people get asked, what are you doing? Which there is absolutely no reason to come up to and ask them. Because there's no law against photography or filming, anything like that in a public place. And they will ask them what you're doing. And when that person responds saying, I don't need to tell you what I'm doing, that gets their back up straight away. And you see the switch in them. And they're not saying we're suspicious of you doing this or thinking you're about to commit a crime. It is, well, it seems a bit suspicious. So now we're going to use our powers that we have to stop and search you. And then when they're saying, and it's not just one. There's hundreds of cases of this. And and you can argue that these people are doing it deliberately, but why shouldn't you go out and do it deliberately and show the people what they're doing? Because it's not one occasion. There are so many occasions. And if the argument that I would happily agree with this, if this is what they're doing on camera, imagine what they're doing when they know they're not being filmed.
I do agree with that to a certain extent. Like, I really do. I think in terms of suspicion, that comes back down to the fact that they're poorly trained. By funding them more and having more in-depth training, more of them, there'll be less, obviously, there'll be more trained in suspicion. Like you said, for the army, they kind of know what they're doing. They should be drilling 2 or 3 times a week. They should know how to defend themselves. So when they are in a situation, they actually know they're in a situation as opposed to possibly not. But I think what I was trying to point out earlier, and I almost, as you said it made me chuckle, when the police person comes over to ask the person with the camera, what are you doing? You just said an answer that was extremely on the defensive. Now, if that was me, and a police officer came over to me saying, oh, what are you doing? I like talking to people anyway. I'll say, oh, yeah, this is what we're doing. These are my permits. There you go. See you later. Now, if that police officer then tried to stay around because...
Yeah, we don't need a permit. That's the point.
I'm still being suspicious, but then I've actually proved my story. I've tried to work with him. He hasn't worked with me, or she hasn't worked with me. Or I've tried to work with them, and then they've complied, and then off they go. It's a 50-50 thing. Now, what you said in your example, you got on the defensive, so then the police get on the defensive. And that's as soon as you say something, the other person says one thing as well. And only one person and one comment can set it off. And yes, they have the right to come up to you and say, if they think you're being suspicious, right? They can come up and say, oh, we thought you're being suspicious. If they come and approach you in a fairly nice, appropriate manner, say, oh, what are we up to? Are you being a bit iffy? What, why are you here? If you just answer them questions, I'm pretty sure that 90% of the time they should just walk off and not bother you again. I don't get this culture of I'm not going to tell the police anything. Like, if you've not done anything wrong, then what are you trying to hide? And why are you trying to prove a point? The fact that you're not complying with something that they've asked, because that now you're just starting an argument essentially.
But isn't the act of, say, coming over and saying, what are you doing? And you can clearly see somebody's doing photography, filming, whatever it is, perfectly legal. There's nothing wrong with it. Is that not the same as you sitting on the bench and the police coming over and saying, what are you doing? And you say, you just look at them like, what's wrong with what I'm doing? Why do you need to come over and bother me? If you don't want to have a conversation, you could actually be really rude and say, none of your business, right? There is no reason for an ego to then get involved in their thinking, because you have to remember, these people apparently have powers, which means they have powers over you. They shouldn't be abusing them. That's the whole point.
They shouldn't be abusing them, but then you should respect the fact, right? So if you're sat on a bench, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be anywhere, right? They come up to you and they've just said, what are you doing? Explain why you're here, right? And you just say to them, go away, and you start walking off, or you don't comply with what they're saying. You don't know why they're asking you that question either. Like, they could be asking you that question for an actual reason. And even if they say the reason, because they're just asking you that question, you can automatically get on the defensive and, like I say, stir the pot. And as a police officer, I think they should be explaining why they're there. If they've just had a call, I don't know if they're allowed to tell people, oh, by the way, there's somebody's just been killed, or, you know, somebody's just done this or whatever, and, you know, the image kind of fits you, because they have to take it as that person is that actual person they possibly might be looking for. And I think that's quite hard to kind of get your head around.
If that's the case, and they're looking for somebody who's committed a crime, and that person fits a description or whatever it is, then you can't say much further than that until proven otherwise. And then you'd have to, of which you'd have to stay there anyway, because what they would do at that point, if they did suspect you of a crime, they would say you are being detained at the moment. At that point, you have to stay there. But when they're not saying that, and you're not in detainment, and you're not being arrested, you haven't committed a crime, you're not in the process of committing a crime, and they don't suspect you of committing any crime, there is no reason for them to stay there and antagonize you further. And then
no, there isn't. And that shouldn't happen.
There's no need. If they had any sense about them, just walk off and go, do you know what? Okay, have a nice day. And you go and watch from a distance. What is the need to antagonize people? Apart from, I actually got distracted from my point. The point was, so where you're saying, you know, that these people, what was it? You said something that they might, it's not disproportionate, the amount of people that are being stopped and searched, or the crime rate would go down if they were properly trained. The point is, some police, and it's not all of them, but I don't agree with the whole, you know, there's one bad apple. There's somewhere in the middle between one bad apple and not all of them, you know. But they will create a crime.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think, kind of taking back of what you were saying, oh God.
But that feeds into the figures, doesn't it? You know, if you haven't committed a crime and you're just stood there filming, say, for example, and then a police officer comes over, says, what are you doing? You get your back over, go, none of your business, go away. You still haven't committed a crime. But what they're going to do at that point is say, I'm going to stop and search you. That then goes into the figures of how many people they've stopped and searched, which increases, increases these figures and makes things look worse. And then if they still feel that's not enough, they could create something else.
Figures, and they don't particularly look bad. I mean, I'm pretty sure, talking about race with, police figures, the black population, is nearly top of the board in terms of crime. And yet they only make up 13% of our population. So when you say, black people are getting pulled over for rape, just because they're being black, or they're not even committing crimes, well, there is that as well. But then you have to take into consideration the area that they're walking through, what they're actually doing, could be even what they're wearing. Now you can get away with wearing a mask, but if someone's walking around with everything up, with a hood up, cap on, and it's 11 o'clock at night, walking down the street on their own.
I'm so glad you brought up that point.
I think that why?
Because it's really weird, right? Before this, you tried walking into a bank wearing a bike helmet, a mask, a scarf around your face, anything like that, right? You tried doing it, you couldn't. You'd be told to leave. They might even call the police. Now you can't walk in without one. What's going to happen when this all finishes? Are you going to be allowed to still walk around with a mask if you don't feel quite safe enough without one, or are you going to go back to saying you have to now take it off?
It depends if there's a vaccine. If there's a vaccine, then I don't think there's a need for a mask.
Are you going to have it?
I don't know.
Ooh.
The thing is, it's going to be like a year down the line anyway. If it's the first round of vaccines and it was certified, it's absolutely fine. Vaccines are great,
Go to Russia, you could get it tomorrow.
Is what?
Go to Russia, you could get it tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I've seen that. Have you seen the list of conditions it may cause?
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
I suppose there's about 8 things that it may affect your body, like skin rashing, depression. But that's just like taking the depression tablet anyway, because of the amount of things that come along with that anyway. So it doesn't really make a difference. But I mean, if there was a vaccine, I'd definitely have the vaccine as long as I knew it was safe. I think it'd be silly not to.
Would you go in for the first round of vaccines, or would you hold off?
No, I'll probably hold off because I don't feel I don't feel like I necessarily need the vaccine. I think the biggest problem that with the virus that's been said is so much fear mongering of, stay inside, keep yourself to yourself, don't do this, don't do that. When They're not talking about getting enough exercise cardiovascularly, taking the right vitamins, actually getting the correct amount of sun and eating a healthy diet.
Yeah.
They've only just brought that out in the past kind of week or two. And it's not that, they were 12 weeks too late. They should have been pushing these things from day one, because I think it was I heard on Joe Rogan with Rhonda Patrick. She said that in New York City, 80% or 85% of the people who died from coronavirus in New York within whatever period it was, 85% of them had a lack of vitamin D. So they had a vitamin D deficiency. And that's quite interesting because, so I take a lot of vitamin D. I have for quite a while. But then along with them statistics came that it was proportionately black people who were dying and getting affected more than white people with coronavirus. Now, I kind of heard a few things, and I kind of thought as well that when you're a black person with black skin, obviously there's a lot of reasons. You need more sunlight. That's why in the terms of your heritage back in however long you want to go, the black skin is suited for the sun, and you'll find that a lot of people who move over to the UK, which is obviously a cooler climate, you don't get as much sun. A lot of black people have a vitamin D deficiency. And that is supposedly a vitamin D deficiency is supposedly a cause, not a cause for coronavirus, but increasing your vitamin D, it betters your chances, as you would say, but in a scientific way. The words that
your body's defenses, isn't it?
I can't phrase it correctly. But
it's your body's defenses.
Yeah, it's your body. It boosts your immune system. And you'll see with a lot of black people, they don't get enough sunlight. As daft as that sounds, and that creates a deficiency of vitamin D, which means...
Is that what it was down to?
I don't think it's down to that, but that's one little factor that can play into your chances of beating the virus, is increasing your vitamin D. And if you are vitamin D deficient because you don't get enough sunlight because your skin's dark, what can you do? Well, you can start taking vitamin D supplements. It's quite simple.
Yeah.
But nobody spreads that narrative. I take one tablet. I got a year's supply for £8, 5,000 IU, which is quite high. Take one a day. That's it. Done.
I tell you what, though, when this all kicked off, I was so scared at the beginning, genuinely, because for me, this came out of nowhere. I didn't know what was going on, right? So it was actually Adrian that was looking at the news before me and saying, "Have you seen what's happening in China?" And she was actually, for someone that doesn't watch the news, she was paying attention to it. And then it started making its way out, and we were just like, okay, maybe we should start planning a little bit. Now, everybody started having a go at other people for hoarding food and, upping the amount of food they bring into the house and storing. I'm sorry, did people not learn the lesson from when you were in school about the, what was it, the lazy squirrel or something like that? Do you ever remember that story? Don't remember that story, Kyran?
You got to remember that you're quite a lot older than me.
I am a little bit older than you. Well, let me educate you, Kyran, because that story of the lazy squirrel there was this one squirrel that would toil all day long, collecting its food, building its house, and getting ready for, I think it was winter or something like that, when they hibernate, if they hibernate. And the other squirrel was just playing through the leaves and spent all day messing around, not gathering anything. Anyway, once winter comes and, it came time to sort of hide away and make sure you have your food stores, it had none because it hadn't prepared for anything, while the other one had plentiful. And then that squirrel was knocking on the door, "Help me, I've got nothing," and the squirrel did let him in. I don't remember the rest of the story, but the key point is prepare. The whole point, you can see on the news, your governments are telling you this is happening, it's spreading, and everybody's buying toilet paper, for one. I found that was bizarre, especially considering the reason they did it in Australia was because their toilet paper didn't come from Australia. They knew it had to be imported, so if there was a problem with production elsewhere, they wouldn't get much of it. We don't have that problem here. I don't know why. I was literally sat in the car park of a supermarket. I just bought a load of shopping. Which actually...
It's not even an essential. Well, I mean, it is an essential because of, we live in a society where toilet paper is expected.
It's not an essential.
If you've got a problem with...
You run out of toilet paper, you jump in the shower afterwards. It's not that big a deal.
There's very nice ways around it. But, it depends on your culture. You can go over to the Middle East and they'll wipe themselves with a hand. I think their left hand they wipe with, and if they shake you with the left hand, it means a sign of offence, that they don't like you.
They're not a big fan of you.
No, exactly. That's quite interesting as well. I just think our culture, just in general, and just the way it is, like we're so almost lucky, and it's been quite interesting as we spoke about yesterday with the Christianity lectures I was doing with Jordan Peterson. Just listening to them and forming the stories of what the Bible is compared to how Western civilization kind of operates. It's actually quite, and you said it just then. So you said preparation, and I'm actually at the moment on Noah's flood, and the summary of the whole 3-hour lecture. It was basically prepare yourself, or and you'll be like Noah. If not, everything can come crashing down. And I think the coronavirus is quite an obvious example, because people didn't have any money saved. They didn't have a piggy bank or a rainy day fund. I think people like myself included, they have a lot of things on finance, and they rely on a monthly paycheck, to paycheck, as opposed to having a bit of money saved. And I think there's a lot of people in that situation similar to me. And hearing that narrative about Noah's Ark, it kind of linked quite nicely in the lecture when I was listening to it. It was quite interesting. Even the whole series that I'm only 4 or 5 episodes in now, of about 12. Which is very, very interesting. I'm not religious. I don't particularly believe in a God.
Okay.
But I appreciate the stories of what the Bible, in terms of Jordan Peterson's interpretation of some of the stories, Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve, or on Noah's flood, and like I said, I've still got a lot more to go on with. It's very interesting hearing the narratives.
I want to say one thing about Jordan Peterson, right? His arguments at times very impressive. Like what's his name, Ben Shapiro, in a debate, very difficult to debate against. You can't argue it. But I saw something, because you mentioned Jordan Peterson yesterday when we spoke, and I watched something of his where he had a debate with a lady on somebody else's podcast, and I have to say I was really disappointed with what I saw of Jordan Peterson. He did the typical thing that a lot of religious people do when they get into an argument, and they either get, as far as I could tell, it seemed like he got tired of the argument, just couldn't be asked anymore. Now,
what were they arguing
about? Do you know what? The hard thing is their conversations go so quickly, it's really difficult to keep up sometimes.
Well,
while you're trying to
TV segments, you want to listen to. He did a lecture series and debate series with Sam Harris. Sam Harris is an atheist scientist and doesn't believe in religion at all. And these debates, I think they did 4 of them: New York, Ireland, London, and somewhere else. They're so interesting. Just because you get both sides of the concept. Now, I'm not saying to anyone watching this, go listen to it and expect something easy to listen to, because it's really not. It's very in-depth, and as I've been saying to you, it takes me quite a while to kind of understand everything that's been saying, because there's so much to take in. Now, with Jordan Peterson, I've also listened to his Pinocchio lectures, I listened to his university lectures, and I've been really in-depth with him, and I've quite... That's a part of the reason as to why I've changed so much. Is I've found inspiration with a lot of things that I was saying. Is also broadened my mind into places where I didn't think I would find interest. Really, I mean, the whole reason why Jordan Peterson became famous, should you say, not because of his intellect, but because Canada brought out a law saying that you had to comply with gender pronouns, and if you didn't, you could be liable to go to prison.
Oh my God.
Which Jordan Peterson came out and protested against, because it's an act of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And this was 4 or 5 years ago. This is when all of this culture really started in the universities at this time. It's not cancel culture as such, but if you speak out against the left, then you get called the Nazi and the racist and the homophobe and, trans rights and pronouns and things like that. I mean, it's absolutely bizarre. I don't understand why. I'm a nice person, right? If I see a trans person in front of me, I'll call them whatever they want. But I don't think that we have to force linguistic speech on the whole population because 1% or less feel that way. In our society, and in pretty much every society of human existence, there's been man and woman. Now there is obviously intersex people, but you can't really count intersex people because they are such a minority of the population, and they normally go with one gender. Now with trans people, they are obviously arguing that they can call themselves whatever you want, and some of the words are absolutely ridiculous. You have some things, Catherine's a linguist, and I said to her, do words like Z and Z actually have a linguistic background, or are they literally just made up words what people say? And she said with things like Z and Z, they actually have a background. I think she said from Germany. But I mean, Piers Morgan's the great example by saying he wanted to be a 2 spirit-nosed penguin, which is a labelled gender on one of the BBC genders. I mean, what the hell is that? I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. And for speech to be then made that I have to legally call someone and refer to that person as that is just beyond me. It's ridiculous, and it's the most, I don't know. I mean, the trans issue is bad as it is. It's almost become a fad. I said to you the other day, there's been a 4,500% increase of young girls coming out as trans, and that's ridiculous. In 10 years, 4,500% increase of young girls coming out as trans. I mean, and of them, that 4,500% increase, autistic girls are overrepresented in them numbers. I don't know what the specific stat is, but I mean, that doesn't really say much to it. I think it's young girls growing up with a lot of difficulties, and they're going through changes. They don't really know what they're doing. Now,
yeah, from what you said, there was a lot of young girls that just seemed too young to make that kind of decision.
Yeah, so in America, you've got you can actually, honestly, you can't even believe what I'm about to say. But in America, if you're at the age of 14, you can go to the doctor, claim that you feel that you're the wrong gender, request a transition, and you can legally get a transition to the other gender at 14 without parent consent. So you don't have to ask your parents, you don't have to ask your guardian, you can do it because you feel like it, and it is happening. It's not as bad here. You have to be 16, I think, when you're here, and you have to have a guidance counsellor or something like that, and that's fine. But it still even happens here, and parents don't know what to do with it. And I can say in about 5 to 10 years' time, you're going to have an influx of, at the moment, just looking at the stats, girls transitioning to males who would think, why on earth at the age of 14, 15, 16 did I get this change? Because it's ruined my life. And I really think that's going to happen. But you can't say that because that's not wokeism. You don't care.
You can say it, but you're at risk of being attacked by the people that obviously feel strongly about it. But the thing that I would say is, I mean, 14, 15, 16 is such a young age to make such a big decision. I mean, even when you're older, look at the decision, look at the sort of impact it has on people's lives, making that decision when they're in the 30s, in the 40s. I mean, it's such a big thing to do at 14, 15, 16, and to not have parent consent.
You can't even get a tattoo until you're 18.
I mean, in America, you can't drink till you're 21.
I know.
So you can't drink alcohol, but you can get a sex change.
You can go get a different sex change. I mean, it's so wrong, and they think that they're doing the right thing. And you get, like I said, all of these autistic girls that are online, they're probably a bit lost. They're going through all of these changes. I'm not just saying autistic girls, it could be anybody. If you're pretty quiet, and then you can go into these little communities, say that you're trans, and get absolutely applauded for it. So, of course, you're going to stick yourself as trans. Of course, you're going to listen to these 18, 19-year-olds saying, well done for coming out. I mean, when I was 14, bloody hell, I couldn't even remember anything about when I was 14. I was probably a bit lost, and by the time you're 15 or 16, all you care about is having a wank and finding a girl. I mean, Jesus, whatever. But you go through it all. People go through stages of life, and they just kind of have to deal with it. And simple fixes, it almost seems like it's a simple fix that I think is a good idea at the time, and because they're so young, they've got no life experience, and normally they grow out of that. No, they tend to kind of either lead a life of being a lesbian or a gay man, or they'll, I think, what was it? It used to be a transvestite. It used to be called, didn't it? Where a man dressed up as a woman and a woman dressed up as a man. But now it's this, that, and the other.
Well, the thing is, right, so there's been all sorts of names and labels for all different things. You know, you've got transvestites, you've got different names for your minorities. Isn't that part of the big problem here, is that we're putting labels on everything? And now, because you're now finding even smaller minorities when it comes to sexuality and gender and everything else, now you've got even more people opposed to other people, which means there is no majority anymore. And it's you have to remember, this kind of feeds into the plans of people with authority and power, where they want you to argue amongst yourselves and not pay attention to what's really going on. I know these problems. Well, I was going to say, I know these problems seem like it's all sort of what do you say? It's all relative to your own situation, isn't it? So how big a problem is relative to your situation, how much it affects you. Now, I know these are big problems for certain people, and I would never, ever try to put them down or belittle them. But you have to remember there are a lot bigger things at play here, and you're ignoring them. And you're sleepwalking into something that would actually affect you further down the line a lot more than whether you feel a certain way this year or next year.
I think there's I agree with a bit. I think there is obviously a lot more of a concern what people need to worry about, as opposed to all these social issues that they keep thinking is the end of the world. I mean, I've worked in the real working world for about 8 years, and none of these issues have really ever come up in the real world. I think when you come out of university, you're a bit lost, you find what you want to do. And what's been pushed into young people is identity politics. You have to, go by an identity, a group identity. You have to stick by that identity. And anything that kind of bad that happens to you is because of the oppression towards that group, not because of the individual. It's not taking into consideration what the individual is actually doing. It's basically saying, it's critical theory, really, in terms of racism. I don't know if you know what critical theory is, but an example from what I've heard is and read a bits and bobs about is critical theory for race. Two people go to a job, one's white, one's black, right? The white person, the white person gets the job, so then the black person doesn't get the job because they're black, right? The black person gets the job, the white person doesn't get the job, but the black person, the only reason why the black person got the job is because they're black. So whatever happens in terms of that situation, and there could be a varied different amount of situations which does happen, that oppression is the link towards what is happening, and it's not down towards the individual, it's down towards what the group identity is with that person. And if it goes for or against a group identity that is oppressed by quite a big margin in terms of history, like obviously Black history is quite oppressive, they can blame their failings quite easily on oppression, when, like you said, that's actually doing a lot more worse for the individual, because they're growing up thinking, especially young kids, I'm black, I'm part of this identity group. We get oppressed by white people, and that's the reason why there's a lot of successful white people and why there's not enough black people in power or anything like that. That's quite an easy narrative to put, and there's a lot of I think kids and young teens and a lot of still older people do believe that. But I think that's just it's so vague. It's so easy to say, I didn't get this because of my oppression. I mean, everybody has bloody oppressions. I mean,
maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the problem, where everything is so easy to say.
Better as an individual, like it's all the individual. Everything is an individual. You can't put your failings down to oppression because you're part of a group. Like oppression isn't some kind. Well, there is a scale for oppression. If somebody can be raped and somebody can be, I don't know, they could have just fallen and twisted their ankle. I mean, and then they can't walk for a year, or maybe not even walk again. Everybody has something, but you don't really, you have to walk a mile in another man's shoes in order to see. And everybody thinks that their oppression is the worst. and I just believe that everybody has their own shit. You just have to try and deal with it, and the world is going to shoot you down quite happily. It will, but you just have to take it on the chin and keep moving forward. Really.
Yeah, I think there comes a point when you have to realise that the government is not going to save you. They're not going to look after you. The best thing you can do is look after yourself and your community, whichever community that is. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean your community as in your ethnicity. If you're black, you don't necessarily have to look after just your black community. You should be looking after the community all around you. Do it at a community base. I think that's where we've lost our way a little bit. I feel we've overreached. We've searched for help or support from places and people that are not interested. They don't care. They don't want to support you. And at some point you have to learn life is unfair, and not just for you as a minority, for all of us as the public, because we're not privy to those privileges.
So 5 years ago, when I was going through my bad phase, and I wasn't really me. I came over here, I tried to sort my life out, and a thing that's kind of resonated with me, it's a quote. So basically, it's "in filth it will be found." And to me, that kind of transpires through to the things that you want in life are found in the places where you least want to look. Because and I turn that as, look at what's going on today. It's really easy to conform yourself with a group, but it's really hard to be horrible on yourself, because you don't want to look at yourself in a right way. You don't want to admit your failings. You don't want to admit what you're doing wrong, because it's easier not to. And I still have a lot of things that I do wrong, and I try and live and learn. But people don't want to learn. People just want to do what they're doing, think it's absolutely right, and then once it goes bad, they'll shout, "It's not my fault, it's everybody else's." And I think that's where the society needs to start changing, because people can't just blame others. At some point, there is yourself to blame. And most of the time, actually, it is you to blame rather than other people. And I think people need to really start to think about that, as opposed to just kind of going along with what everybody says.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
I mean, for a lot of people, this is not something I regularly talk about, but myself, I have Jewish heritage. And as a kid, it was picked on at times. I was put down for it. I had a neighbor that lived across the road from us. Their kid wasn't allowed to play with me because I was Jewish. And at one point I was playing football in the field that was across the road from me and next to this person's house. They live right next to this big playing field. And we were playing football. They called, their kid was sort of talking over the fence to the dad. And they called us over and actually called me over. And as I walked towards the wall, he flung a metal dog dish at me and just called me scum and told me I should have been gassed with the rest of them. And just because I was Jewish, didn't know me, had no idea about who I was or my family, really. But that is a prejudice. And I could have chosen to wallow in self-pity. I could have said the world is against me, this isn't fair. Especially when you look at history. And even today, the people are still trying to pick out the Jews. I mean, look at Wiley's comments recently. This is a guy in a prominent position, very well known, using a big platform and all his users and followers to promote his message. I know he got banned and everything, and you could argue rightly so. Although I am against cancel culture, I have to say this. Yeah. If somebody was to say these things to me, you can say it. You can say what you like. Yeah. You shouldn't be violent towards anybody, but you can say it, and I should be able to rebuke it, basically.
I think by saying, allowing them to say it, the society can judge what the person is saying. And with our society and how developed it is, I think we're quite comfortable to know what's right and what's wrong in terms of a lot of ways. Especially, this is the thing, you can nail down when the right goes too far. I mean, you've had pretty much the last 100 years, you've had wars, because of right-wing politics. There isn't really a way where the left goes too far. You can't really pinpoint it. It's almost, currently, I think it is too far, and it kind of goes with cancel culture. So when the right goes too far, you kind of expect wars and things like this. But when the left goes too far, you kind of cancel out a lot of the population. And by doing that, almost creates more tension between people. And if you are cancelling out for, say, I don't know, a KKK member on Twitter, right? You're not allowed any more KKK stuff on Twitter or Facebook, anything like that, right? By not putting them onto social platforms, you're then just creating a community that will only talk to itself. So a good example is within the Westboro Baptist Church. There was a family who basically they go to funerals of army people in America and anywhere really, and they basically say that they're gay people who deserve to be killed because God doesn't love them, their home. All of this absolute hate, it's awful. They have the right to say it, but it's absolutely awful. But this one girl used to be part of the church, and she got talked out of the church because of people talking to her on Twitter. Now, if she was blocked and couldn't communicate with any people because of what she believed, then that wouldn't have happened. And I think in fact more people would actually, go along and stay within the walls of wherever the wrongdoing is, whether it be KKK or this example I said with the Westboro Baptist Church. So by silencing them, I think it's actually
dangerous.
I think it's creating more issues than what it is, because you can't have free debate.
The danger of doing that is when you silence people and tell them they cannot say what they want to say, or your views are so wrong you cannot be heard in any way, shape or form. You're creating a very dangerous person there, because they could eventually go underground, and there are plenty of people ready to take advantage of that, because when they feel slighted by the general public, that hate, we've all seen the hatred that comes from it. You've got terrorist attacks and whatnot from hatred, and you have to look at society and say, well, how was that person treated to feel that way? How were they got hold of by people who swayed them to think that way? And it, like you said, because say these people that did that to me, say they were pushed out of that community, like, no, you can't do that. And that's fine. The community can rise up and go, that is wrong what you did. Not with silencing you, but with saying that is wrong. What they would eventually do is maybe feel that they couldn't be part of that community, and they'll go and find a community that's more like-minded. Now, this community that they find is probably going to be so much smaller than they thought it would be, and they will not be able to prosper as well as they thought they might. Having said that, because that happens, they would be forced to try and integrate themselves back in society, whether they try and do it covertly or whatnot, because they need to survive and prosper. And what they might find what they might find along the way is common ground with people they thought they hated.
So are you basically saying that people should be suppressed?
No, not suppressed at all. But they should be told that what they're doing is wrong. And they should have a chance to say what they want to. You can say what you want to say.
That works both ways, doesn't it?
But everybody can revolt against you.
Everyone should have a platform. Everyone should have a platform. Everyone can have an opinion. Our society has formed its basic moral values on certain aspects that we think are right and what we think are wrong. And there is only a very, very, very small amount of people who take, KKK protesters or white supremacists, very, very small amount, insignificant almost to a certain extent, that believe in these methods. They still have the platform. They should still have the platform. Go march, go parade, do whatever you want. But I'm going to laugh at you because of how stupid you are.
Exactly.
And I will quite happily debate you about your values. I mean, by just silencing them, you don't know what they're saying, you don't know what they're planning, you don't know what they're doing. They're just away doing whatever they want. And
why should anyone be allowed to be heard above anyone else? Essentially, it doesn't. I know what they're saying is nasty and horrible, and maybe the majority of people will hate it. But why should you be able to say something to them and they can't say something to you? That would be the point I'm making. And actually, Kyran, to get away from this, as we draw to the end of this, I'd like to ask you a question.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to coming out of lockdown, coming out of this COVID crisis? What are you hopeful for the future? Do you see anything positive coming?
What, for me specifically?
Even if it's just for you.
Well, for me, my next goal is to become part of the North Wales Fire Service. that's kind of what the ambition is, and I'd be quite gutted if I don't get in. In terms of the society, I think we're going to be going into about a year of bad times.
You feel like this will
I would
extend
still
into next
probably
year?
say that with Labour politics and left politics, I'd probably still say we're going to be conservative for the next 5 years, just because we're going to be going into a massive recession. It's generally Tories that end up being in charge in a recession. And I think that'll kind of happen. Not that I want that, but I don't know who's going to be going for the next Prime Minister job.
Would you say it's more important to vote than ever?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And people have to remember, like, they should be the person that represents their own area the best way possible, whether that be Conservative, whether it be Labour, and here, obviously, if it's the Welsh Party or anything else. You should. I still have the narrative, and I can't really even say that, but I still have the narrative that I don't really want to support Conservative. But with what's going on at the moment, the left is losing too many people. Fucking hell, they need to just get a grip and seriously just start actual doing things that are not just woke and making themselves look good and portraying themselves as great. Because while they're doing that, I'd say the Conservatives are actually planning something properly. Take Brexit, for example. Brexit happened. People didn't really expect it, but the people who voted leave, the people planning, they did it. They managed to, by whatever means, I've seen a couple of films about it, it's really interesting, but they targeted people who haven't voted for God knows how long, and they got them to vote. And that's it. That's what the left's not doing. It's relying on young people to just kind of steer the boat for the next kind of 10 years. And I get that. But by doing that, they've just cancelled out the whole working class, the lower class, these issues that we've talked about tonight. So, trans, men and women, you want to say police brutality, not police brutality as such, but all of these social oppressions that keep cropping up that are only really stemming from young people are not portrayed in real life. And that is why working class people and poorer people don't really give a shit, because they've got other things to worry about. Like, personally, I don't give a shit. I don't really give a shit about a lot of people because I don't know them. If they're in my friendship group and they live with me or I see them, then that's different. I think that works with a lot of people in society. Like, they don't care about these issues because they don't see any of it. I mean, how many trans people do you see in North Wales? How much? I can't think of. But there's endless examples that all these social issues that you don't really see in day-to-day life that keep cropping up as issues, and I think that's why the left is losing. I really do, and they need to kind of get grit and look at their policies, look at what they're saying, and kind of sort themselves out to become a party that's not just kind of woke, not just kind of ticking a box to make themselves look great, but actually something fighting for poverty and actual social issues. But I can't see that happening at the moment because of what's happened. I still think it's going to be Conservative, unfortunately.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, for me, that's unfortunate. But again, like I said, you have to look at what's going on in your local area. You have to vote for the person on Anglesey, the blonde lady who I met a few times in the Sandymount house. She didn't even live on Anglesey. She lived in central London. Which was, yet she was running for the constituency of Anglesey. She wasn't Welsh, couldn't speak Welsh. I was like, well, why on earth is she running for a candidate? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous.
And do you know what? That feeds into a point I was about to make. That people need to start looking locally.
Yeah.
You need, instead of looking at the government as a whole and thinking who to vote Prime Minister, start locally. Think who your local representative is. Do they support your values? Are they looking out for your local area? And vote the right person in, because when you vote somebody in who might not be in the same mindset as the government, it sends a signal to them of the tide is turning. Yeah,
and one thing that as an individual you have to remember is you have to share your political opinion. I think I read last week, if I can quickly find it somewhere. God, no, I can't find it. But it was similar to about No. 62%, I found it. 62% of Americans feel that they can't share their political view at work. 62%, that's Americans. Over here, 1/3 of where we go, 1/3 of British people within universities and schools who are on the right wing feel that they cannot share their political views. That's a lot of people who can't talk about their own opinions because they feel that their job security would be at risk if they did. That's an issue, and people need to express themselves with their politics, and they don't need to just cave into posting a black square because everybody else is doing it and go with all these social issues, because they need to have an opinion and it needs to be heard, or else nothing will change.
And everybody who's either left, either right, you need to learn something. You have to listen to both sides. You need to meet somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you can't move forward. And look at the position we're in.
That's where the left's losing, because the left isn't listening to the right, and the left is just spewing a load of shit, so the right don't even want to listen to them, because it's just not on the.
And they're both trying to shut each other down. You get nowhere, and that's all that happens. Is just you're perpetuating the same thing over and over again. Nothing moves forward. So start learning from each other a little bit. Have your conversations. It's okay to disagree. You don't have to agree on everything, but you should hear other people.
It's okay to lose. It's okay to be wrong. That's the message. It's okay to be wrong. Like, everyone can make mistakes. Everybody can, but you have to grow from the mistakes, and that's what you have to learn.
It's not flip-flopping. It's learning. Do you know what, Kyran? It's been absolutely lovely having you on here.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it, actually. Really enjoyed it. I thought I was. I was a bit nervous to start with, but I've enjoyed it. I don't know how many viewers we've had or anything, but...
Do you know what? Once this lockdown is over, I would absolutely love to have you in here so we can have a conversation face to face as well.
I can't wait for it in.
Brilliant. I will speak to you soon, and to everybody that was watching, all 4 of you probably. I hope you have a lovely. 10 people. I've just been told. I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening, and we'll see you again on the next podcast. Thank you, Kyran.
Lovely. Cheers.
Bye.